This is kind of weird topic for a video, but I don't know. I hope you enjoy it. Hi everybody, my name is Maddie and welcome back to my channel, or thanks for joining me if you're new here. Today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. I don't know if it's just I'm a little emotional right now or what's going on, but today I thought I'd just talk about why I read books. I feel like this might give you just a little bit more insight to who I am as a person, what I want to represent on this channel, and maybe just a little get to know you better type thing. Yeah. So I'm just gonna dive in. I don't really have a plan. I'm probably gonna try and keep this shorter, as I know some of you guys were asking for some shorter videos, which is also a little bit more manageable for me in terms of editing and maybe being able to get a little bit more content out to you guys throughout the week. So, reading. Where to begin? I was a really early reader, and I don't say this as a brag, I just genuinely started reading really young. By the time I was 4, I was reading picture books and everything like that completely by myself, and then by the time I was 5, I was reading Magic Treehouse type JFic books. I just happened to pick it up really early and then just fell in love with stories from there, and I think the fact that I read so much just kind of propelled me a little bit ahead of where I guess my classmates were at that time. I do remember one of the big milestones for me learning how to read is, I don't know if this is a general thing or just a me thing, but when I learned how to read, I learned how to read out loud. And then I had to teach myself how to read in my head because I read so much. I remember reading a Magic Treehouse book and everyone in my family being shut up. I was 5 or whatever, and they're okay, please go to another room. This is very distracting having you read out loud, which totally understandable. And I remember having to sit and train myself to not say it out loud, and then catching myself saying it out loud and having to relearn that. So that's just a random fun story about me, I guess. But I think that was where my love for reading really started. I was also a really quiet kid and kind of had a difficult time making friends. So especially in junior kindergarten, I know that having the opportunity to just kind of go to the reading center, which we had this massive snake that you could sit on that I thought was the coolest thing, and just have some time to myself was something that I really appreciated. And then I grew up. Dramatic twist. But no, I think I read quite a bit when I was younger just because it was something that I enjoyed doing. And then I think reading for me really transitioned from being something that I enjoyed it to being something that I needed to survive, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. I think it's just something that I want to talk about because I think it will give you guys a little bit of a better idea of kind of where I come from and why some of the things in books and the representation of things is really important to me. So when I was 10, we had a really close family friend of mine pass away, and I think I didn't really know how to deal with / process grief that well, which I mean I think is a fair thing when you're 10 years old. And then shortly after that, my mental health started to kind of tank, and that was really when I first started experiencing depression and anxiety, which is something that I still struggle with to this day. And reading for me was really an escape for all of that. And I think as I got older, it was a way for me to understand myself better. I was really struggling and I didn't know what was going on with me. All I knew was that I had all of this pain that had turned to numbness and I didn't really have anywhere to put it. This is one of the reasons that Perks of Being a Wallflower is one of my favorite books, because it was one of the first books that I read and I was oh my god, I'm not alone in this feeling. other people feel this way, there's like hope for me to get to the other side. I'm not like crazy, this isn't all in my head. And the way that Stephen Chbosky writes that book, there are words and lines that Charlie says that sit with me to this day that I just relate to in a way that is so profound that I don't know how to properly explain that to people. So for me, when I talk about representation, representation to me is so important because honestly, representation saved my life. If I didn't have books, if I didn't have these stories to throw myself into, to give myself like some scrap of understanding and learning how to cope, I honestly do not know where I would be. And obviously reading isn't the be all and end all, like getting to a point where I can live with my mental illness on a daily basis has been a really difficult journey, but reading is something that helped me get there when I didn't really know what was going on with me, what supports were available to me, and how I could get to the other side. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit heavy, I know. I don't want to get into too much of my own personal struggles just because I want to keep this video kind of lighthearted. But if that's something you guys want me to talk about a little bit more, let me know and I would be willing to address and be more open about that on this channel. Maybe doing a video about some of the books that have the best mental health representation that I've read would be something that I would be interested in. So as I kind of got to the, not necessarily to the other side of that, but to a healthier place in my life, I stopped reading. Especially to when, I think it's important to recognize that like while reading did help me get through my mental illness, there were points when my mental illness overtook my ability to read and then I was just completely alone because I didn't have the energy to focus on anything whatsoever. So I think a combination of like the very tail end of like crashing and burning with that and then like starting to come out the other side is kind of this gap where I stopped reading again. And it wasn't really until kind of the other side of that where I was really starting to get to a bit of a better place in my last couple years of high school that I picked up reading again. I lost a lot of friends throughout high school, which was something that was really difficult, and I was pretty much alone. Like I had one friend who I was really close with, and then I had a lot of people that I was like acquaintance with, but they would never really like actively invite me out, and they weren't really people that I could talk to at all. And the way that my high school worked was your lunch period just fell wherever it could fit when you were in grade 11 and 12. So I had lunch completely by myself, I didn't know anyone, and our lunch periods were an hour and 15 minutes long. It does not take you that long to eat food, it does not take you that long to get your homework done. So I spent a lot of that time reading again, and that was really kind of where I started to find my way back to books. And instead of, I don't want to say books being a crutch, but I think in this case, books took a different role in my life where instead of being like emotional support, they were more friends for me. They were an escape from the loneliness that I was feeling at that point in time and an ability to see to the other side. I think that was really the start of the time where I was really wanting to realize that I wanted to be an author in my life, and being able to learn from those books and things that I was reading was something that brought me to the other side. Fast forward to me being at university, and pretty much what happened at university was I met a ton of really amazing people. I really lucked out with the people that I roomed with. I got super involved in residence and thrown into school and everything, and I just stopped doing the things that I loved. I think this was something left over from the deepest, darkest bouts of my depression. I think there was things that I loved doing that I never really picked up again after that, or I didn't really know how to pick them up. And some of the friends that I had in high school weren't the greatest people and kind of made me feel shitty for some of the things that I really loved to do. So being able to find my way back to that, some of that has been a long and difficult journey. And it was pretty much at the start of last year that I really realized I miss reading. This is something that I want to make an active effort to include in my life, because I think reading makes me a more sympathetic and empathetic person. It helps me understand myself better, but it also helps me understand the world around me. And that's not saying reading is like a stand-in for going out and doing your research and listening to people talk about issues that's going on in the world. It's not. But I do think it's a really important avenue to hearing about stories that you may not otherwise be exposed to. And also, not everyone has the means to go and listen to those talks and explore things in that way. But if you have a library, you can go and get those books and be a part of that. And the library was honestly a huge part of my childhood. There was a summer reading program, and I was always super involved and ridiculously over-competitive in it for no reason. So when COVID hit, I really started getting back into reading just because I had so much free time on my hands, and that was already a goal that I had set aside for myself. And I think now reading has come to be joy in my life in some ways, as well as an escape on some of the harder days, and also a way for me to learn, just to learn about writing and learn about other cultures and learn about different parts of the world and different experiences, learn about myself, learn about people around me. There's just so much out there, I think, in literature that there's a story for everyone. Maybe you just haven't found the story that works for you yet. And I think that's something that I want to keep in mind, is that I do recognize that reading isn't necessarily going to be for everyone. I grew up with two dyslexic brothers who both really don't enjoy reading. They have certain books and series that they're really passionate about and that they enjoy following, but there's other things that they're not necessarily going to like go out and willingly pick up a novel and read it the same way that I do, which is totally understandable. They have their own ways of ingesting media and writing on their own. So why do I read books? I read books because reading is life to me, which I realize sounds so dramatic. This whole video probably sounds a little dramatic, but I am a writer. Stories are my lifeblood. They always have been, since they basically came into my life as a lifeboat and rescued me when I was drowning. And I don't think that's ever something that I'll be able to completely let go of. So I want to be able to give back to those authors that gave me so much, that gave me my life back, essentially, by being able to enjoy more stories, share those stories, share their works, create other things that are related to their work in order to be able to help put a little bit of that love and that joy or pain or whatever I needed to feel at the time that they were able to give me back out into the world. And just to be able to process my own emotions better. Sometimes I'm not very good at sitting in my emotions, but if I sit in the emotions of a character who's very similar to me, that can help me get to the other side. Just to kind of wrap this up, I'm just gonna say, this past year, I've really gone on a journey of trying to actively include things in my life that make me happy. I remember in my first year of university, one of my professors, when I was in his office hours, asked me what my major was and was surprised when I told him my answer, because he thought that I was an art major, because he said that he always saw me like light up in class whenever we were talking about music or art or painting. And it just made me realize how much this complete stranger who I'd been seeing for 3 hours, maybe like for 5 or 6 weeks at that point, could see what was making me happy, and I couldn't. I wasn't actively putting those things in my life. And it took me another year and a half to get to the place where I was making an effort to actively put those things in my life, but I'm here now. I draw on a regular basis. I didn't realize how much I missed art and drawing and painting and how important that is to me as a form of expression. I have my first draft of my novel done. I'm hoping to get it edited and out to publishers by the end of this month. And I read constantly, and I create this content for all of you guys. And honestly, it doesn't fix the fact that my brain doesn't work properly, but it helps a lot to know that there are things that spark joy in my life, and I am making an active effort to include them. So yeah, I think I might end up titling this video something more like my reading journey, because I feel like that's kind of what I've taken you on a little bit, is a journey of what stories are to me and how I got here. And I just want to say, for anyone who's found this channel, I hope that I can help you on your own journey for reading, or that we can go on that journey together and find the books that spark joy for us, and also find the books that remind us of why we're here and the types of people that we want to be, and help us more actively shape our lives to become the best, most unfiltered versions of ourselves, because life is really too short to be wasting time editing our own stories. We should just really be living every minute of it and just putting every word down on the page that we can. So that's all that I have to say. Thanks for going on this little philosophical journey with me. If you'd like to hear more of these videos about like my personal experiences or random funny reading stories that I've had throughout my life, I have a weird amount of them, please let me know down below. And my Instagram's down there if you want to look at some of my art or my Goodreads, and feel free to subscribe and ring that bell. I can't wait to go on this journey with you. Until the next video. Bye.